Steve is going to come back up, and she's going to come up, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to try to understand this with her for the next 45 minutes. So take a listen, and let me introduce you to Candace Stevens.
My name is Candace Stevens. I am the mother of Cheyenne Stevens, 11 years of age, along with twin girls that are 7, and the daughter of Uncle David. June of 2006, my mother lived in Davis and her fiance Christopher Greenway. I came to visit me and the girls in Colorado. The twins were only 4 months old. My mom wanted to take Cheyenne back with her for a couple weeks. I thought it would be a good idea for Cheyenne, but the twins had taken a lot of attention away from her. She was 4 at the time. Mike and I would be heading to Albuquerque in a couple of weeks for my cousin's wedding. We would pick Cheyenne up at that time. I wanted to rebuild that relationship with my mom. She seemed like she was doing well. What daughter would not want her mom in her life? And Cheyenne loved her baby. That's the name she gave my mom. In February of 2008, the New Mexico AG's office showed up at my door in Colorado. From that day forward, my life changed forever. Detective Lois Kinch had shown me and my husband pictures of a very young naked girl being molested by a man named Christopher Greenway, who is currently my mother's fiance. Lois had asked me if I knew who the child was. As much as I wanted to say I have no idea, there was no denying that was my daughter's child. I would fix my stomach and in shock. I was never touched as a child. You would hear about stuff like this all the time on TV, but it doesn't really hit home until it's your own child. It was a nightmare, and 7 years later, it still feels like one. From that day forward, I tried to give my mom the benefit of the doubt, that she had nothing to do with it. But she was not at my door. She didn't call to give me a heads up. She showed no remorse. I was told by the AG's office that in September of 2006, they had a warrant for my mom's house and computer. I had visited my mom with the kids 3 times from the time her house was raided and everything seized, till the time Lois Kinch showed up at my door. She never mentioned that the cops had been there or about the allegations against her for herself. All 3 times I stayed with her, I left the children in her and Chris's care. She never said anything to me about what had happened, what the cops or the computer. She had put my children in danger once again. A couple days after seeing the pictures and talking with Lois, I jumped on getting Cheyenne therapy, along with Mike and I didn't know how to handle what we were going through. I had a really hard time with taking care of Cheyenne as a mother. I could not bathe her, dress her, or comfort her when she was sick. Everything a mother is supposed to do for her children. I felt dirty, and that I was going to bring up bad memories for her. It took time and therapy to get through that and to understand why I was feeling that way. It's my responsibility as a parent to make sure I help my daughter get through this. My marriage was failed. The fact that my own mother had done this to our baby had caused a lot of guilt and distance. I'm not the one to blame, but I cannot help the fact that I trusted my mom to protect Cheyenne and in her care. I lost my family. They did not believe that this could happen and that I could make up a story about my daughter being abused, and that I had resented my mom for all the craziness in our lives growing up. I lost a lot due to the allegations. I was not the one who turned the pictures over or even knew what was going on. The cops showed up at my door. I did not show up at theirs. I lost my marriage. I lost my family. I lost my mother. And worst of all, I lost my daughter's innocence. No one else in my family has seen those pictures we saw that day. I will never get those pictures out of my head. They haunt me. And I can only imagine what haunts Cheyenne on a daily basis. It's a big burden for a child to carry. I've seen a lot of changes in Cheyenne over the years. Her faith to God is amazing. She's 11. She cries a lot, dresses like a boy, because she thinks kids can tell what has happened to her. This time of her life is scary, with all the growing and changing, along with the images in her head of sexual acts that no child should know about. She has a lot of questions. Therapy has been a lifesaver for us. Cheyenne has seen the same therapist for 7 years. I refuse to let my daughter be a statistic. I would like her to continue therapy until she's 18. She will have a lot of challenges in her life, and I want her to get through them. What have I lost in all of this? In 7 years, I have not missed one court hearing. I have been to all of them, even if I'm not needed. I need to know that I can make some kind of an impact in my daughter's future. It is an 8-hour drive from Denver to Albuquerque. The majority of it has been on my own dime. I have lost jobs for all the time I have missed from work. I lost time with my kids to travel to court. So much time lost with the kids that I would never get back. I'm a single mom now for 5 years. I do not get help with traveling expenses from my kid's father or my family. I have lost a lot of my family. It's sad that when something happens to a child, that adults choose sides. My brothers and sisters are suffering as well. My mom has been in and out of our lives for as long as I can remember, due to her selfish habits. We have all given her the second and third chances because she is our mom. It saddens me that my mom is manipulating my brothers and sisters by clinging to them as their children. Because she's suffering from AIDS and is now going to jail for all the mistakes she has made as an adult, drugs to me is not an excuse to neglect as a parent or a grandmother. I believe my mom has manipulated the courts. Since she has been released on bond from jail in this case, she has gotten to kiss and hug my little cousins and nephews, go to the casino, go camping out of the county, and live her life trying to make up lost time. I don't think that it's fair to go against all she was told not to do. While I cry every day, take time out of my life to battle for justice and safety on my goals. On my only day off of work, I drive back and forth to therapy to just understand why. I want to live a normal life, without all the sadness and stress of attorneys, courts, and travel. I have lost my trust to anyone close to me. How could you not? The person who's supposed to be there for you, your mother, is the one who hurt you the most. Things like that should never have to happen to people. This last 7 years have been hell. It's not easy to see your own mother in an orange jumpsuit and shackles and know that you were part of this crazy dream. One thing I have realized is I'm a victim of my mom, just as much as my own daughter. When I was younger, she would cook meth in the kitchen, invite strange men over to have sex with them. They would always hit on me and my sister. I blame my sister's drug use on my mom. She got started at such a young age. Right there, that in my eyes is child abuse and neglect. When Cheyenne was a year old and learning to walk, my mom was staying with us to help out with care for Cheyenne while we were working. One day I found a crack pipe sitting on Cheyenne's dresser in arm's reach for her to grab and put in her mouth. I kicked my mom out and moved back to Colorado. That was the last time I spoke to my mom until I had the twins 3 years later. When I had the twins, I wanted to try and rebuild that relationship with my mom. I regret that now. Why didn't I just stay away? She has been nothing but bad news for us since we were kids. I can go on and on about what my mom has done. I also want to say that we didn't just have bad times. There's a lot of great things my mom did for us when we were younger. It's just hard to express those times when I'm so hurt, angry, and trying to understand why my daughter, why my family, why me. I have the utmost respect for the DA and the AG's office and all the victim advocates, along with the Honorable Judge Stan Whitaker and the Supreme Court. I believe without them, the abuse on Cheyenne or even other children would have continued. My mom does a wonderful job of acting like a respectful citizen. I can rest now knowing that someone was brought to justice and will have to deal with the consequences for what they did to my little girl. And in the end, that's what it comes down to. I'm looking forward to healing and enjoying my girls without all the craziness and stress of court, to grow and to learn from this. It has made me stronger, and I know that when the smoke clears and time has passed, that we can all mend our broken hearts and get peace within my family and in my children. I pray that my mom will come to terms on what she has done before she leaves this world, and comes clean with herself and the ones she has hurt the most. If anything, this case has made a statement that you cannot harm a child or you will eventually get caught and have to pay for your wrongdoing. I know other sexual predators learn from this case and will think twice before harming our children. For that, please show no mercy and let set an example to the public that no child should have to live in fear. Sincerely, Candace Stevens. We have come a long way in this case. This statement has been very hard to say.
So now you know the story of Candace Stevens, and we're very fortunate and honored to have her with us today. Steve, come on up and bring her in.
All right. Wow. We were talking a little bit before this started, and you really have lost a lot through all this, but you're very determined to take something that was horrible and make it into something good, aren't you?
Definitely am. Can you hear me? Yeah, I am very excited to be here, especially 3 weeks after sentencing. I'm going to take something so horrible and make something good.
I want to go back just a little bit. Does this one sound better than that one? I want to go back a little bit. The very beginning of the tape, it was hard to understand, I think. And I want to make sure you all understand exactly what occurred and at what age. And just going back to the beginning, Lois Kinch, who was from the Attorney General's office, special agent, an incredible woman, had found information and called you. Can you just explain what she said and what happened in that little instance?
Well, my phone was ringing at 5:30 in the morning, and I didn't think anything of it, just kind of let it go. And then about 7:30, 8 o'clock, I listened to the voicemails, and it was a woman from the AG's office in New Mexico, and I was in Denver at the time. And she's like, I need you to give me a call back. And I didn't know what it was about. Continue to feed the kids breakfast and go on with my morning, and then she called again. And I missed it. So then I called her back, and I said, can I help you? And she's like, well, I need to speak to you about your oldest daughter and your mother, or when your daughter was out here in New Mexico. And the thing that crossed my mind was, what drugs did my mom get caught with when she had Cheyenne visiting here in Albuquerque?
And how old was Cheyenne?
She was 4 when she came to visit, and at this time, when Lois called me, she was 5. So I said, well, what drugs did she get caught with? And she's like, well, I need to speak to you in person. And I said, well, I got to be at work at 4 o'clock. So what time do you think you're coming over? Well, I'm leaving Albuquerque now, so I should be there in 7.5, 8 hours. I said, you're leaving Albuquerque to come see me in Denver to talk to me? Why can't you just tell me over the phone? And she says, I really need to speak to you in person. And she said, I suggest you call into work.
And she got there. She comes to the door.
Well, first, my uncle has worked for APD. And so I called him first, and I said, this woman contacted me from the AG's office. I don't know who she is, what she's doing, but you need to get as much information on her as possible. And then I called attorneys for myself because I thought, my mom got busted with drugs and that they would put me responsible and, for leaving Cheyenne in her care. So it was the worst 7 hours of my life. I put the kids next door to the neighbor's house because I just didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to get arrested or anything. And then she showed up.
You had mentioned that you had broken off the relationship with your mom, and then it tried to rebuild things. And I know that in looking back, that's a regret, but that's a very natural thing to do. You had recently seen your mom and her boyfriend, Chris Gourlay, through this process. Tell us about the experience of finding the crack pipe and what happened with that, what your thoughts were.
Well, it was before the twins were born. We were living here in Albuquerque, and my mom was staying with us while I worked full-time. I just got out of beauty school, and my husband at the time was working as well. And Cheyenne and my mom were very close. Cheyenne was the first grandchild. And so my mom stayed with us, and I was putting Cheyenne's laundry away in her room, which is where my mom stayed, and the crib was in there as well. And I found a crack pipe on the dresser. And Cheyenne at this time was using the furniture to walk, to learn how to walk. And I confronted my mom, and I said, I can't believe you would even bring this in my house. And my husband at the time got very angry, actually pinned her against the wall and told her to get out.
Had you seen any signs, anything that made you wary before that? Did you think that everything was okay?
My mom has always been really weird. She always used to say she was 50-50, and the family would always, your mom's on something, but as a child, you don't want to see your mom in that light. So I always just kind of pulled the wool over my eyes and always made excuses for her. So I knew she had her issues, but I never thought she would bring it into my house.
Well, this would be then when you would discuss when your mom lived with you and the time that she spent with Cheyenne. You felt like they were building a good relationship.
Oh yeah,
So they were close.
she was a fun grandma. She'd take Cheyenne out to the mountains and paint rocks. Take baths outside in bathtubs. Like there was a place up in the mountains that had bathtubs, and she'd take her out there and go swimming. And they did everything. They went to the zoo. And Cheyenne loved me.
So despite all the drug issues, she was becoming.
She was a great grandma.
She was becoming a grandma. So now we forward up. It's 2008. Lois Kinch is arriving at your door. You don't know what to expect.
I don't know what to expect. I'm thinking drugs.
And in she comes.
So in she comes, and she sat us down, and she says, I have a couple photos that I'd like to show you. And the first one was of Cheyenne in a bikini at the pool. And she goes, is this your daughter? And I said, yes, that's Cheyenne. She goes, we found this picture on a child pornography website. And we seized your mom's apartment, and on the camera we found more pictures. And I'd like to show those to you. And she pulled them out, and it was of a little girl. You couldn't see her face. Her face was cut off in all the pictures, like somebody was actually like posing so that you couldn't see her face and you would like the angle. And she was in a princess outfit, a princess dress-up outfit, which I had in the closet, the exact one. It wasn't one you could buy at Target or Walmart. It was something that my mom bought at a thrift store. And her fingernails were painted, and Christopher Goulet, my mom's fiance, had his head between her legs. He had her up in the sky, and he was entering things in her. And they asked me, they said, is that your daughter? And as much as I wanted to say, you got the wrong child, it's not my kid, I couldn't deny it.
It breaks our heart just to hear about this. And thank you for having the courage to talk about this in public, because this is such an issue and it's so much more widespread than anybody ever wants to admit. Can you go back to what went through your mind at that very moment?
That this wasn't happening. We were never touched as children. Cheyenne came out here for 2 weeks on vacation. I never thought it would go that far, and I kept asking myself, is that, what am I getting myself into? Is that really her? But there was no denying that it was. I know my own daughter, and she had special birthmarks and stuff, and I remember Lois saying, have you ever seen that dress before? And I said, I have it in the closet. And I handed it over. And I was in shock. I couldn't even cry. I couldn't even cry.
Your kids were not there.
They were not there. They were next door at a neighbor's house,
Thank God for
which
that.
was a very good friend of ours.
The blessing itself. But so then, tell us about Cheyenne's safe house interview.
Well, a couple days after Lois was at our house. Now, first of all, Lois had told us that Chris was in custody. He had a $500,000 bond, and as soon as she got home, she was going to ask for $1 million. But they weren't going to arrest my mom because they didn't have enough evidence that she took the pictures. They really honestly believed my mother took the pictures. And so we had a safe house interview about 4 or 5 days after we had found out. Cheyenne was 5 at the time, and she didn't say anything. They showed her a picture of a gingerbread man with private parts and said, can you show us what that is? What are those boobs? Do you know what that is? Like they were pointing at private parts on the gingerbread man. And Cheyenne was denying that she knew what any of the parts were. She was acting like she didn't even know what boobs were or butt was or any of that stuff. So it wasn't a very good interview. And I think she was just really scared and nervous because, you know, my mom did groom her to not tell. And we found that out later. So I think she was just really terrified.
I was going to ask about that because that's the common denominator in abuse is either threats or sweet talking. That, well, this is just our little secret, or if you ever let anybody else know. Did you eventually find out? You mentioned
It all came together. It all came together. Cheyenne used to say things like, Mimi says I can never ever do anything wrong ever. So like if Cheyenne got in trouble for something, for not sharing or taking something from her sisters, you know, I would try to, you can't do that. And she'll say, well, Mimi says I can never do anything wrong ever. So you can't punish me. You know, or Mimi feeds me M&Ms for breakfast. And I called my mom, this was before the allegation, and I told her, I said, Mom, you can't tell her those things because I can't be a parent. I can't punish her because she just doesn't think she does anything wrong.
Well, I mean, grandparents tend to do that
Yeah.
naturally. I mean, you know, they drive away and have a lot of fun doing it. So that wouldn't seem necessarily out of the ordinary.
And then when Cheyenne was out here in Albuquerque on vacation with my mother, my grandmother had called me, and she had Cheyenne over for the night, and she said, Cheyenne is telling me this insane story about the cops coming over and arresting you and how she'll never see you again. And so then I called my mom and I said, Mom, what's going on out there? And she says, oh, the neighbors next door, the cops were called and they arrested the parents and the kids were crying. Later to find out, my mom would tell Cheyenne, if you ever say anything, the cops will come, they'll arrest your mom and dad, and you'll never see them again.
That's correct. The threat. In hindsight, did you notice behavior change in Cheyenne when she came home from this experience?
No, not very much, just that she felt like she couldn't do anything wrong. She had these weird dress-up clothes. I remember one day she came out, because my mom had sent her home with a small little Sesame Street suitcase full of dress-up clothes. And I was sitting having coffee with a girlfriend, and my daughter and her daughter were in the room playing, and they came out in dress-up clothes, and Cheyenne had lingerie, like a little lingerie outfit. And I said, where did you get that? Oh, it was in the suitcase Mimi gave me. You know, and I took it off of her, and I threw it in the trash, and I was embarrassed. And I called my mom, and I said, Mom, she goes, oh, I must have accidentally left that. You know, so Cheyenne didn't know any better. You know, she was 4 or 5, so she was just a happy kid, but after the trip with my mom, she just never felt like she could do anything wrong.
What were your experiences with the boyfriend, Chris Goulet, up to this point? Did you ever have a feeling that there was anything that was off? Or
no, that's the weirdest thing about the whole situation. After the crack pipe incident with my mom, I didn't speak to her for about 3 years. I didn't have no contact with my mom whatsoever when I moved back to Colorado. When I had the twins was the first time I talked to my mom, because my family had told me, you know, your mom's doing really good, she got her teeth fixed, she's enrolled in school, she has a fiance that works for some lab company for medical labs and does lasers, and your mom's really doing great. Well, having twins was such a special thing. You know, I wanted to share that with her. I wanted to share that with my mom. So I came out when the twins were 6 weeks old, met Chris for the first time, went to my mom's house. It was clean. She had gained weight. She was cooking. She was like the mom I remember. Of course, with her little crazy issues, but, you know, she was the mom that I remembered. And Chris he clean cut, and he was very respectful, and he was so excited to meet the children that I felt good. I felt like my mom was finally getting something.
So now, you grew up here,
I was born here. I mostly grew up in Colorado. I've been back and forth.
but you had family here.
Lots of family.
So walk us through, after this experience, walk us through the next few years. What happened with family
After we
here?
found out.
Right. What transpired? How that affected your thing?
Well, first of all, my mom wasn't arrested until 6 months after we found out the allegation. And how she was arrested was for Cheyenne's second safe house interview. Cheyenne had been in therapy for 6 months already, and I had talked to the schools, I talked to everybody and said, if you see any changes in her, will you please let me know, because we're going through this situation, and I just would like to know. One of the teachers at her school contacted me and said, Cheyenne is drawing some very awkward pictures. So I went to get one of them, and she drew a picture of my mom with a camera in her hand. And my mom had short hair, but she would wear those fake ponytail clips and put them in her hair. Cheyenne actually drew a picture of her with a fake ponytail in her hair. So I had called Brett Lovelace, which was our attorney at the time. It's now a judge. I called him and let him know what was going on. He goes, let's get another safe house interview. We can only do 2, because after that it's considered phishing if the kid is not talking. So she went, Lois went up there as well to Denver to go to the safe house interview, and Cheyenne just spilled all the beans. This is my niece, she had a camera, Chris did this to me, this is what happened, and she goes, I'm done talking. And she walked out of the room, and that gave them enough probable cause to arrest my mom. She was arrested the next day. It hit the channel news. From that day forward, my family stopped talking to me. Completely stopped talking to me. My mother's sister and her husband were Cheyenne's godparents. I haven't heard from her since the day my mom was arrested. So right away, a letter went out across the family saying that I was making this all up, that Candace over-exaggerates everything. When my mom was arrested, we found out that she had AIDS. And that was another made-up story that I had made to the family. Oh, she doesn't have AIDS, she's not dying, she's not sick. You know, so it was a lot of blame on my side. A lot of blame.
We want to talk about the family issues, because those of you that deal with this professionally know that's a constant. The families tend to take the side of the perpetrator. They don't want to believe it. They make excuses. And we're going to get into this in a little bit of detail because it's so important. Let's back up a little bit. Between the time of what you just described and when you first heard about the allegations, did you have any contacts with your mother, any conversations, and what were those like?
I had one. The day after Lois showed up at work, I had called my mom. Because first of all, Lois, when she showed up at my house, she was shocked. She said, I looked up your driver's license, and you have a federal gaming license, which means you have to be fingerprinted for. She goes, you've never been arrested. I come in your house, and it's clean. You have a St. Bernard and a white picket fence. She goes, this is not what I was expecting. Your mother told me that you were a drug addict, and that you and your husband didn't care about the children, and that you live in a shitty part of town in Denver. That's exactly what she told me. And she was shocked that we were a normal family. So the next day, I had contacted my mom, because Lois told me that she was shocked I didn't know about the pictures, because she said that my mom was going to contact me and inform me of what was going on, but she never did. So when I called my mom, and it had been 24 hours, so I was still like really angry and frustrated and just trying to figure it all out. I'm like, Mom, what the hell is going on? They're saying that Chris was doing this to Cheyenne. I saw pictures, but you can't see Cheyenne's face, and they believe you took the pictures. And she goes, well, if I ever knew that he did anything like that, I would have killed him. I go, but it's a full-on face of him. It's not a side view, it's not a back view, it's a full-on face of your fiance between some little girl's legs. So you're going to try and tell me that you don't believe that he did anything, or that you would kill him? I go, he's on $1 million bond. And she goes, well, if I heard anything, I would have killed him. And that was the last time I talked to my mom.
Then once the family fallout began, you had to have felt like you were being victimized all over again in a completely different way.
I thought for a while, you know, am I doing the right thing? Should I have just said that this wasn't my daughter? You know, the family made me feel like I was blowing it up, that I was dramatizing it, that I was making it up. And after a while, you kind of feel that way. You know, and like going along with the story, and like going along with the allegations, is this really happening? You know, am I doing the right thing by continuing to, you know, fight, or should I just drop it and forget about it and let my family be?
Because that's the easy thing to do.
That is an easy thing to do, is to walk away, and everybody wanted me to walk away. Why can't you just let this go? Why can't you just drop it?
You know, it occurs to me, this is the key crux of the entire problem. We talked about backstage a little bit, and you all know this, I'm guessing, that, I mean, when I think of this, I'm thinking, okay, you need to teach your kids that safe places to touch, not to touch, when to tell somebody, all these things. And yet, it's in the family. It's somebody the child knows, which makes it, and it's your own mother.
Lois had asked me, have you ever talked to Cheyenne about good touch, bad touch, and keeping secrets? And I said, no, like she's 4 or 5. I've never left her with anybody. You know, she could tell you how to fight off a stranger, like, in a second. I go, but I've never talked to her about that. We don't touch us children. You know, and now, I mean, I look back, I'm like, why didn't I say anything? Because I didn't know. There is not enough out there.
And when you say you didn't leave her with anybody,
she was my own mother.
You didn't leave her with anybody you didn't know or part of the family. And what, does somebody know the stats? Isn't it 98 or 80% of the kids who are abused by someone who they're close with, they're friends with? I mean, that's the crux. I just bring that up.
But another very common thing is that while you are being victimized, all of a sudden you felt like the guilty party on different fronts. Guilty for not perhaps mentioning that issue to your daughter, and guilty for what your mother was being accused of.
I felt very guilty. It destroyed my marriage. I held on to a lot of guilt, even though I didn't do this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to put my daughter in that position. I couldn't help but feel guilty for what was going on. Somebody was going to lose in this situation. Either my mom was going to lose and she was going to go to prison for the rest of her life, or my daughter was going to lose. But somebody was losing in the situation, and I couldn't help but feel responsible for being in the middle.
And very seldom do marriages survive these kinds of things. There's a lot of added pressure.
Well, it was my own mother. It wasn't just a family friend or an uncle or a weird cousin. You know, it was my own mother.
So you're dealing with all this emotionally. I mean, what a horrific thing to deal with. Now we jump into the legal system. Now the legal system is involved. And now, and this is, I want to hear about this because this is the frustration I'm sure people hear too. Bernalillo County District Court Judge Charles Brown disallowed the camera that contained all the graphic photographs of your daughter.
He did it the day before my birthday. I was getting ready to leave to Albuquerque. I was packing my bag, getting ready to go to trial. And I got a call from Brett Lovelace, and he said, I'm sorry, Candace, but Judge Charles Brown just threw out the pictures. And I'm like, how can he do that? You see a picture, it's just like seeing somebody get stabbed, literally stabbed, and then just saying, oh, forget we ever saw those pictures. Just forget that they were even there. And I said, well, how can he do that? And he said, well, it's a technicality on the warrant. It wasn't, they found the pictures on the internal memory of the camera. And the internal memory was not on the warrant. So he had probable cause the day before trial to throw out the pictures.
Did that put all the pressure on testimony from your daughter? Did she ever have to do that?
Well, we knew she was going to testify, but she was really young. And so we hadn't prepped her yet for trial. We wanted to wait to see if they would take a plea bargain or something, so we wouldn't have to put Cheyenne through that stress of having to testify at trial. So she was fine. It was me trying to get prepped for trial and to move forward, and all of a sudden it's like, forget you ever saw those pictures.
Now, the good ending to that part of the story is the Attorney General's office went to the Supreme Court.
Well, first I went to the Court of Appeals,
Okay.
and we lost. And I remember Shannon Murdoch telling me, we can take it to the Supreme Court, but that's going to take 3.5 years, and they only accept a certain amount of cases. And I told her, I don't care what you have to do or how long it takes. You showed up at my door, I didn't show up at yours, and I'm not ready to close it. So take it as high as you can take it. I didn't know what that all entailed. I didn't know what that all meant. Once we took it to the Supreme Court, things were quiet. I didn't hear from anybody for 2 years, 2.5 years. And I just kind of wondered, you know, is it over? My mom was released out on bond when we lost to the Court of Appeals. Christopher Goulet stayed in, but my mom had no criminal background. So they went ahead and released her out on bond. So knowing that my mom was at the casino, eating Lotto Burger, hanging out with her nieces and her cousins, and babysitting small children, she was babysitting children 5 days a week while out on bond, just upset me.
What was going on with you and your daughter during this period of time? Did she start therapy at this point?
But she had started therapy the first week we had dug out the allegations. We kind of slowed down therapy for her because I was going through my divorce. It was getting to be a lot going back and forth to therapy. And at that point, I was just trying to move on with my life. But every day, it was still in the back of my head of going, are we ever going to get justice on this? Ever.
And I want to remind folks, you were in Denver. You had to travel here.
I've been to 37 hearings here in Albuquerque, all on my own, mostly on my own dime. I travel last minute. Sometimes they only give me 5 or 6 days notice.
You mentioned the word on your own, or the phrase on my own dime. And no doubt that the financial cost has been big, but the family, the psychological cost has been bigger. What has this cost you?
It's cost me my whole world. It's cost me my marriage. I've lost jobs. I haven't been able to go on vacation because you never know when you're going to go to court or when there's going to be another motion hearing. I mean, I've lost time with my children that I'll never get back. You know, Cheyenne has never seen Disneyland. Now she's getting too old. She doesn't care about princesses, you know? And
oh, that never goes away. What about the relationships with extended family? Now that this is all said and done, has that changed? Have you been able to rebuild any of those relationships?
I have not. My brothers and sisters don't talk to me. I still get blamed. It's only been 3 weeks since sentencing, but I get blamed for putting my mom in jail. I get blamed for what she has done. We have not, my extended family, we have not, nobody has reached out. I have a couple cousins that have been through with me since day one. They have been right beside me, fighting just along with me. But the rest of the family hasn't even contacted me.
And just one quick follow-up. This huge cost, you've paid a major price, but you are convinced that it's been worth it.
Completely, 100% worth it. I've been saying since day one of this happening, especially with Lois telling me, have you ever spoke to Cheyenne about good touch, bad touch, and keeping secrets? Since that day forward, I've been waiting for this case to end so I can share my story, so I can make awareness, so you can walk into a welfare office and see a pamphlet of have you talked to your children yet? Because it's such a sensitive subject, nobody wants to talk about it.
You said, I mean, this story is off the charts in terms of difficulty here, and you know that. I mean, these people deal with it all the time. It's still difficult for them to hear this story. But you said backstage you want to move mountains.
I do. I want to move mountains.
First of all, let me say, on behalf of everyone here, you are moving mountains, and you are changing the world. There is no.
Thank you.
So I know you've thought about this. What do you say to parents? What do you say to them about this whole situation that gives them the tools they need?
You have to stand beside your children 100%. I think our children learn from example. I have missed a lot of time with my daughter driving back and forth to Albuquerque, but as she will get older, she'll realize that I did it for her, and not just for her, but for everyone. Because now that we have been to the Supreme Court and we won, they're already using our case in other states, which is already putting perpetrators away. You know, and I refuse to let my daughter be a victim. I refuse to let her be a statistic. I want her, as she grows up, to know that my mom fought so hard for me. She may have not been there for me all the time, but she fought really hard for me. And she continues to fight for me and for other children, that she will not have problems in relationships. She will not have issues with her children. She will not have a hard time getting through this. She is going to be an advocate as she gets older. I can already see it. I can already see it in her. And she leads by example. So I think, you know, when I was going through all of this, I even went to group counseling. And I realized that there is a lot of families out there who are going through this who just want to push it under the rug and forget about it. A lot of them do have drug and alcohol issues themselves. But, you know, it takes one strong mom to say enough is enough. You look at Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, Mothers Against Guns. It was one parent that just said, it stops here. And if parents could just realize that our children, when something bad happens, the best thing to do is just to stand up for them. Who cares if you lose your whole family? You don't choose your family, but you choose to make sure that your children grow up and be respected and outstanding citizens. That's our job as a parent.
A lot of times, it's the extended family members who will first become aware of, or at least suspicious of, abuse going on. And they're not sure that maybe they have the standing or the position to say something or to bring this up. I had a private message on Facebook within the past month of a lady who was very concerned about something going on in a local case. It was getting a lot of press. I encouraged her to go ahead and step forward, but it was very, very difficult. What would you say to people in that situation where it's not my child, but I have a strong feeling that there's something wrong?
They need to speak up. Our children cannot speak up for themselves. It's sad that when adults choose sides, you know, that they don't protect the children. And, you know, the families, it may be hard to lose your whole family and to tell the truth and to fight, but our children need us. Even if it's someone that you don't know, you know, or you knew very little, like your friend that, you know, is wanting to say something, but she's worried that she's going to lose her family. You know, family is not everything. Blood is not thicker than water.
So what are the next 10 years like?
I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. I just signed up for the first time for college. I've been doing hair 14 years, and I'm tired of it. And I have just signed up for public relations. I would love to do more conferences. I want to be able to walk into a welfare office and see a pamphlet, have you talked to your children yet? I want to share my story. I think it helps me to heal. It will help my daughter to heal. And it would make everybody else just kind of look at their own family. I mean, my mother did this to my daughter. I don't know if we have a picture of my mom from when she was younger, but if you look at how my mom used to be, and then you look at her now, you know, it's all about drugs and alcohol, and, you know, you would never think that your own parent would do something like this, and I just want people to look at their whole entire family.
You are such a good example for all of us, no matter what we're facing. You know, you go home and you complain about the boss, or you go to work and complain about your spouse, and you feel like life is tough at times. But you've been through hell on earth.
Yeah.
What do you credit as your source when people tell you, I can't do this by myself? What did you use to get through? Where does your strength come from?
Well, I don't know. For a long time there, I was really angry at God. I definitely think that He has been there for me this whole entire time. And just in the last 2 years, I've really gotten to know Him more. But before, it was just my children, my kids, and the crazy thing, the way my mom was when she was young, when we were younger. My mom always taught me to stand beside your children 100%, no matter what. And then it's unfortunate that it's her I'm standing against. So I just kept fighting. My children needed me to.
You know, I think we have like 5 minutes. I don't know if somebody here professionally has a question, but let me say this. We are all now part of your story. Yeah, when I mentioned tools that we all have that we can use now, I mean, you all have all the stories that you've heard before, and now we have this story. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone. We're going to take this with us for the rest of our lives and hopefully help you make a big difference.
And let me ask you a question, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, we have a lot of social workers here. A lot of times they may be dealing with people that are facing the questions, the fear that you went through. If it is a situation where they feel like speaking personally with you privately on the telephone or exchanging emails with somebody, are you willing to reach out to people?
I'd be more than happy to be a victim advocate. You know, I think people that are going through this need to know that, you know, they're not alone and that they can get through this. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done, and if I could just share my story with somebody who's going through the same thing and go, okay, we're going to get through this, and it took 7 years out of my life, and it's better now than it's ever been. This is the happiest I've ever been in my whole entire life, and if I could just share with somebody and kind of help them through it and support them through it, that would be amazing. I'd be so grateful to do that.
Is this, Lynn, is this being recorded? So will this be online, and is that all right with you?
Yes.
Is this online? It's a live feed. So somewhere in the internet, as we all know, it exists now from now forward. So if you want to share this with other people, there's that opportunity.
You know, this is not my last conference. I don't believe so. I hope not. I hope that this is going to open up hundreds of doors. I'm ready to change the world with mountains.
Can we have a round of applause for this young woman?
Thank you. Any questions out there?
We've got like 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll give you guys the results so you don't have the results. 3 weeks ago, we sentenced Christopher Dooley to 21 years in prison with a 72-year tail, meaning he screws up and goes back in for the full 72. And then my mother had taken a plea of 18 to 30, and she was sentenced to 25. About 3 weeks ago. And it still hasn't hit me yet. To be honest with you, I haven't even cried about it yet. It still hasn't hit me. I think that it feels like everybody asks me, how does it feel that your mom is going to jail? Now, she does have full-blown AIDS, so she's not coming out. She's going to come out in a brown box. And people are like, how does that feel? And I just tell them, it feels like someone died, like who had Alzheimer's or cancer, and you're just relieved, but it's still sad. And the thing I wonder the most is, how is she adjusted? How does she adjust to something like that? And I do feel responsible for her life. I feel I can't help but feel that I'm part of her dying in jail.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Lady in red.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you couldn't hear that, Chris had a history